Good evening. I'd like to call to order the public hearing of the Board of Estimate and Taxation for today, March 23rd, 2016. I'd like to ask the City Clerk, Donna King, to call the roll, please.
Mayor Rowland,
Here.
Chairman Burnett,
Present.
Ed Camacho,
Here.
James Feigenbaum, Alicia King,
Here.
James Page,
Here.
and Young Dorn.
Here.
7 present.
Thank you. Welcome to the Board of Estimate and Taxation public hearing on the operating budget for fiscal year 2016-17, which begins on July 1st, 2016. This board is the appropriations body for the city's operating budget. We have reviewed the finance director's recommendation and each of the department's requests for the upcoming year's budget. And tonight, we would like to hear from you, the taxpayers, before making our tentative budget recommendation on Monday, April 4th, 2016. We look forward to your input on the operational funding proposed for the city's departments, Board of Education, and grant agencies. Our goal is to keep tax increases as low as possible by appropriating only those funds necessary to maintain or improve services to our residents while maintaining an appropriate general fund balance which supports the city's AAA bond rating. We want to hear from each person who wishes to speak tonight, and we have our city department heads present here today should there be any items that need clarification. I believe the clipboard is still available if anyone would like to sign up to speak tonight, and I would ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Our city clerk, Donna King, will monitor the time to keep us on schedule, but more importantly, to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to speak. And before we move into the public discussion, I'd like to ask the mayor to make a few comments.
Thank you, Mr. Burnett. Thank you to the department heads for being here this evening. Thank you for members of the public who have expressed interest in how the city spends its money and how we levy our taxes. I want to pay particular thanks to the department heads that I just mentioned because, you know, levying taxes is not an easy thing. It's a necessary thing, but it's not easy. And I sent them a message early on that we were going to work very, very hard this year, as we did last year, to keep our taxes down to as low a level as possible. And I'm very, very pleased to see that the hard work and the thought that went into this, the sacrifices that people were willing to make, the savings that we were able to find in certain parts of the budget. So they really, really rose to the occasion, and I want to thank each of the department heads for their cooperation. The other thing that I want to do is I want to make a note to Mr. Barron. Mr. Barron is working hours and hours trying to find the best ways to implement the budget to keep, again, the taxes to as low a level as possible. We believe that when all is said and done, we will probably have a tax levy increase that is less than any tax levy in the past 10 years or beyond. And a large part of that goes to the hard work of Bob, his knowledge of the city finances, his working with department heads, his getting out the night where he needed to and cutting and trimming all the fat off the budget. So I really want to thank him. He put a lot of time and energy into it. This year, one of the big issues that was reported on for several weeks in the past couple of weeks were the fact that the City of Norwalk and the Board of Education were approximately $600,000 apart. I'm pleased tonight to say that the budget that we're proposing has closed that gap, and the Board of Education, the $600,000 will be in the operating budget so that we have fully funded their request out of the operating budget. Again, a lot of hard work. Bob, Mr. Barron, was able to bid out some fuel costs and had savings, approximately savings of about $485,000 when all is said and done, whether with pensions and with fuel costs and so forth. So we were able to put that money in towards the Board of Education. We're very pleased. I see Dr. Adamowski here, but we're very pleased that we were able to close that gap and then fully fund the Board of Education operating budget request for this year. Again, thank you to the public for being here, for not only wanting to hear how we're going to be spending the money, but also to give us an input as to some thoughts that they may have from their perspective. And thank you to the Board of Estimate and Taxation. This is a very busy time of the year for us, lots of meetings, lots of difficult decisions that have to be made, but the board has shown that they're capable of making those difficult decisions while still keeping in mind the need to not reduce our city services. So thank you to the Board of Estimate as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also wanted to mention that we do have copies on the side here of the tentative proposed budget, if anyone needs a copy, and we'll also have it posted on the website by tomorrow morning. So with that, so with that, I'll ask the city clerk if you can. He's not here,
Okay.
so let's get over when he comes in. We'll have him, so he can start with the list.
Brian Meek.
Good evening. Brian Meek, 11 Cranberry Woods Road, also on the Board of Education. I want to thank you, Mayor, and the Board for holding this hearing tonight. A lot of good work has been done to date, and I feel like we're in okay shape heading into the fourth quarter of the budget cycle. Tonight, I want to thank you for your full consideration in restoring the full $600,000 and $3 million to our respective operating and capital budgets. I understand this has a majority in support, and we on the board are grateful for your assistance in this very tough budget we have put together. This will enable us to begin work on our updated strategic operating plan to bring greatness to our public school system. With that said, there is one more area, financially speaking, that we need to address, and we need to address now. As you know, we need $2.3 million put aside in special education funding to right the ship here. The city simply cannot sustain double-digit rate growth in this area as it has for many years. And more importantly, we need to offer children the opportunity to have these services provided in Norwalk instead of busing them all over the state. Not only is it very costly, but it is simply wrong to put a child on a bus for 20 hours a week to obtain the education we are required to provide and can provide here in a more cost-effective manner. A few weeks back, staff presented to you a way to achieve this by raising taxes and then only partially funding the required amount. This plan is simply not feasible from an educational perspective, and we have a much better proposal that will in no way harm the city's AAA debt rating. We need this temporary bridge in order to achieve our goals, and will not be able to do that without fully funding this. The same way a temporary bridge needs to be built for the walk bridge replacement. They can't do it if they could only fund 2/3 of their bridge. We have to build the full bridge. We need full funding. The Board of Ed will agree to put forward 100% of its actual free reserves of $1.3 million into this fund. And we humbly request that the city match this with $2.3 million, which is about 5% of our rainy day fund. That stands at $42 million. This $42 million is the highest ever in the history of the city, highest currently of any municipality in the state, some $7 million higher than Greenwich, and $16 million higher than it was 5 years ago when somehow we were still able to maintain our AAA debt rating. I won't even go into how we expect the city's rainy day fund to increase much more than the $2.3 million we're asking for in subsequent years with all the development and projects going on. The argument that the city would have to raise taxes to fund this to protect its AAA debt rating is a bit of stretch considering these facts. Our plan aims to flatten this cost curve from over 10% growth down to roughly the 3% growth that we seek operationally every year. This means once we have the educational supports in place, this special fund goes away. We expect to save $700,000 a year every year going forward. If you were to throw this into a perpetuity calculator, you will see that this total $3.6 million in investment actually has a net present value savings of $35 million. It makes sense to do this. Now, if we don't do this, what are the ramifications? I will tell you. After 3 state audits going back 8 years where the city has done nothing, we are especially prone to litigation. Not to mention that sped costs will continue to grow at double digits every single year here on out. About $1 million each and every year. 1 million this year, 2 million the year after, 3 million the year after that. On and on and on if we don't curb this. I'll also remind you of the situation our neighbors in Darien had that ended up costing them $25 million. We're in much worse shape now than they were then when they had those problems. We need to take care of this. Let's do what's right and not make the same mistakes. Respectfully, I submit to you that it is your fiduciary duty to draw upon these surplus rainy day funds and not to raise taxes to achieve these goals for the betterment of our beloved city. Thank you. I would also ask one thing. Dr. Crevecoeur, who's heading up the special ed committee to help operationally make these things better, he could not be here tonight, but he would like to submit a letter in hard copy for your review. If I could bring that to someone. Thank you for passing that out. Thank you.
Joanne Cooper.
Good evening, Joanna Cooper from 4 Shadow Lane, Norwalk, Connecticut. I'm a parent of a student that's been in your system, special ed, for 15 years. I'm an educator, and I also served under 3 governors' appointments to the State Advisory Council to special education, which is a statutory position which requires me to inform both the legislature and the State Board of Education. And furthermore, 8 years on the Focus Monitoring Committee, which monitors compliance and performance indicators in special education. I live, breathe special education. I am asking that you support Dr. Adamowski's 3-year plan fully. And I want you to know that I really strongly believe that anything less than funding the 3-year plan, as he has asked for, will be ineffective, and you might as well give nothing, if that's what you're going to do. I want you to know that given the 3 Craig reports and the Cambridge report, over a decade demand that this happen, and this happen now. Each report over a generation has only confirmed that it gets worse and worse and worse. So who are we talking about? We're talking about children, students that are age 3 to 21 that are with a full range of disabilities, including the gifted that also fall under the heading of special ed. We're talking about 13 to 14% of the school-age population. What's at stake, and why should you do this? The reason that you should do this, the most obvious reason, is that you'll be saving lives. There's plenty of research that shows that if you give children early intervention, then you can eliminate the cost of care over a lifetime. These are federal mandates. They are not optional. They are supposed to be in place. What else is at stake? At stake is finding a new special ed director. If you don't fund it, that's going to be in the news, and that is not going to help us find a new special ed director, which is already difficult enough. It's also at stake, I believe, is keeping a superintendent, because they've been through here in revolving doors. And if you don't fund his plan as he's asking, you are absolutely tying his hands up and his ability to do it properly and succeed. What else are you preventing, and what else is at stake? A class action lawsuit that could cost millions and make Darien look cheap, or the mosque debacle look like child's play, okay? Also, you risk losing federal funds for our programs in our school, and ultimately, if you can't get it right this time, you risk a state takeover eventually in special education. What is the problem? The problem is that the current model turns IDEA on its head. that the current model of a consults and outside placements is the exact opposite of the way special education is supposed to run. The first consideration of placement for any special ed child with any disability that requires services must be in the general ed environment, in inclusion with supports. To start at the other end is doing it backwards, and that's how we're currently doing it. That's what the CREC report showed. Besides that, we have some major work to do. What we're trying to accomplish here is we're trying to accomplish a continuum of services that are not in place. We've discovered through Dr. Adamowski that we are in deep trouble in terms of regular education and putting in place the supports that are going to help kids with the achievement gap, meet the close the achievement gap, and that is done through tiered interventions. We have only one level of intervention, and it's a smattering, and it's not consistent, and we need 2 or 3, and that's not happening. That puts tremendous pressure on special ed. In special ed, throughout the whole system of special ed, birth to 3, all the way in between to the transition period, up to age 21 if services are needed, we do not have that continuation of services, or a continuum of services available. We need to do that. And it's going, because of the nature of special ed, you're going to need at least 3 years to do this and really make a serious commitment to doing it. If we don't do it, who does it hurt? We already know it hurts students. And don't think that it just hurts special ed students, because if you have a special ed student in a class that's disruptive, whose needs are not being met, it hurts every student in that class. So it hurts all students not to have these things in place. It hurts parents who spend a tremendous amount of money trying to support their kids and meet their needs through other ways, because this school system is not up to par in terms of doing that. And it hurts teachers.
Could I ask you to begin to...
Yep, I'm going to wrap it up. It hurts teachers because teachers aren't staying and they're leaving. I don't think there's any excuses. I think this city has a ton of money. I don't appreciate this ping pong game. We shouldn't have to raise taxes. We are building bigger and more and greater than any other city. The money should be there. And when I hear about paying for turf over people, it makes me sick. I think that you need to put your priorities in order. And I think that if we have a AAA bonding and we don't have quality schools, that we really aren't doing our community a service. Thank you very much for your consideration. And I hope you fully fund it.
Patsy Brescia.
Good evening. I'm Patsy Brescia. I live at 136 East Avenue. I've been a taxpayer here for 50 plus years. I love this city as I know all of you do also. I'm here tonight on behalf of Lockwood Matthews Mansion Museum. I am not sure how we eventually ended up being funded, but I'm here to hope that it's at the $75,000 level. The mansion is owned by the city of Norwalk, as you all know. The trustees and the museum are the stewards of this incredible building. The first mansion in the United States, a mansion that was built 20 years before Newport. And your Board of Trustees raises $450,000 every year to keep this building open. And you have been helping to fund us with paying heat and electricity. So I hope we're at the level of $75,000, and I'm not sure, excuse me, I went online today, I couldn't discern the specifics of that budget. But I hope you have supported that request.
Thank you.
Lou Givon.
My comments are a lot more mundane, but nevertheless, I think they need to be said. If I understand this correctly, one of the things that's supposed to be being done here is to respond or to complain or comment about the various, in this instance, my complaint is with the P&Z and that the way they run the place, which is, well, they're paying, in my opinion, a lot more money. But one of the things that really annoys me is that their refusal to accept cash as tender for their various rules, right? This was implemented some time ago, and not everyone has a credit or debit card in my mind. As far as attendance at these meetings, the attendance is sparse. No one believes that the bureaucrats will be responsive, and by and large, they are not. If you look at Rilling and the Democratic Council on the zip line, the Charter Commission, they want to keep these bums in there for 4 years. No, get rid of them. You have to be able to walk them out the door. All right. The other thing that I find rather interesting is in the Sanders and Trump candidacy essentially is about radical change. Norwalk more than needs the same. This other issue is only because of funding, and that is that recently the chief of police of the Norwalk Department said that anybody that's not a threat should not be sitting in jail because they can't meet a bond. His operatives, i.e. L.T. O'Connor, don't believe that and bond whatever they feel like bonding. So it ends up that the chief is talking out of both sides of his mouth. His management style is woefully lacking. He and Gonzalez, however that's pronounced, don't feel the need to respond to the electric concerns. It all has to do with responsiveness to the people that we're paying to do whatever job they're doing. And I'm here to tell you on many, many occasions, there is no response, including Lily, right? Somehow or another, when he was police chief as well, they seem to be above and beyond responding to the people that have something that they want to say and get an answer to. I know, I tried to communicate with them, and I tried to communicate with them as the mayor as well. They really don't care. Thank you.
Yvonne Suko.
Good evening. My name is Yvonne Suko. I'm the Executive Director of the Sexual Assault Crisis Center. And I'm just really here to thank the City of Norwalk for your continued support to nonprofit organizations that provide the much needed services in the community. More specifically, I would like to thank for the continued support to our organization, especially when we are constantly seeing cuts at for mental health services at the state and federal level. Our programs are essential to the community, support for survivors of sexual abuse, and prevention programs. So I would like to say that last year we served about 24% of our clients were from the City of Norwalk. Out of the 8 towns we served, 20% of our education was provided here in Norwalk, and we attended about 30 child sexual abuse investigations in the town of Norwalk. So I just would like to thank you for the continued support. I don't have any specific requests, just to acknowledge the city for the effort they make to support us. Thank you.
Bonnie Stoltenberg.
Good evening. Please bear with me. I kind of just learned about your meeting this morning, so I really did not prepare anything, but I am concerned about the budget in regards to special education. I do have a son that's in the school system, and I feel like the school, while I have no personal problems with my son's school, I do worry that they're always doing the bare minimum as it is, and taking anything away from his education really scares me. And it is frustrating as a taxpayer to have to pay all these taxes, and it's frustrating because when we moved here, I thought, oh, Connecticut should have a really wonderful school system here, and I don't get that vibe. And sorry, I'm really nervous. And like I said, we pay a lot of money towards taxes, and it takes away from trying to find things to pay privately. If the school can't help, it's just hard to do that financially in a private manner. So just again, I'd like you to look over the budget and just really the special education kids really need more. So thank you.
Thank you.
Diane Lorchella.
evening. I wanted to thank the BET for all the work. This year I did not, for the first time in a while, go to some of your special meetings due to a family illness in my mother. But I know you've been working hard at crunching the numbers. I wanted to know if there's a chance that any citizens that could not make it tonight could forward any type of comments or suggestions to this board by a date certain. I know sometimes that's been done, not sure. Some people had told me they couldn't make it, so.
I think that would not be a problem. Our email addresses are available. I know you have them all. And if you have any comments, there's a time frame,
Yeah.
I believe until what,
April 4th.
April
Okay.
4th. They have to
I think that's
have any
great.
comments in before that. That's the night we set the final budget.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. With that in mind, I'll keep this even briefer. One thing I wanted to make sure is that with this budget this year, that we make sure, because a lot of it has to do with salaries, personnel, I wanted to commend Mr. Barron and this BET board for having a lot of data and information. It's a lot, of course, to absorb, 216 plus pages. But a lot of things have changed a little bit for the better, and I'm glad that it's out there online, so I appreciated that. I wanted to make suggestions as to the revenue side of the aisle, which hardly ever comes up here. Most people are talking about expenditures. And I've said this before, but this year, more than ever, I think the time has come to really take a look at the enforcement side of the business. And I'm not talking about slamming people when they are in error, such as contractor yards. I'm talking about having smart government where you train people that occupy land, for instance, in the Planning and Zoning Department and Public Works, that there is an enforcement flavor so that people know that there are certain laws that they need to abide by. There's not a rough, impersonal or unprofessional way of enforcing the law, but I find that we are not keeping up, especially with the Planning and Zoning Department. Now, I knew one excuse years ago had been the treble damages. Well, that was taken out of the way. So what I don't see, because of a lawsuit and legal means. So I wanted to make sure that this Board of Estimate make sure that the staff involved with any type of enforcement, be it health, be it Public Works, be it Planning and Zoning especially, that there is an enforcement strategy. I've mentioned this before. As an example, there are several areas where contractor yards have expanded into residential areas. This is not only a planning and zoning violation, it is also a health violation. I won't name names right at this time because you'll be getting my email shortly. And I see that there's a lackadaisical attitude that I believe this administration inherited. So I'm not laying it with any one administration. But over time, especially since I'm a former enforcement official with the state of Connecticut, I just find that we could increase some revenues with that. I also wanted to take a look at staff salaries. It has been mentioned before that staff salaries are especially not always reflective when you add in their benefits, what one would get in the private sector. So with that, I know many and most of our staff work very hard. It's not easy being a public employee, as I was once one. I know you get it from all sides. However, I wanted to make sure we're getting the bang for the buck. And in my letter to the editor today, I was hoping that more people would show up and maybe you'll hear from them. But I'm afraid to say that in some of the departments, I don't feel we are getting that bang for the buck, only because I see that actions speak louder than words. And in observing committees of various departments at times, I see a lack of willingness to look at visionary things and advising the commissioners of those boards and commissions with thinking outside the box. There's more of a reaction by staff to applicants and what they're suggesting. Often those applicants have very good suggestions. We've gotten some of our best, for instance, zoning regulation changes from what applicants say. I want to see staff starting to develop it because, quite frankly, especially in planning and zoning, they're being paid in the senior level high above, when you add in their benefits, what the private sector does. And those private sector people work 24/7. So I wanted to see a willingness of this board to ask the tough questions about performance, performance review, bang for the buck, enforcement, and also making sure that they are bringing to their boards and commissions proper information from the world stage, the national stage, etc. I have just a few more things, and then I will be done. On the revenue side, we do have, and I have in the past complimented the Recreation and Parks Department for at least trying, and I know Ann Yang has also felt that that was an interesting way in the past of last year, and I have complimented Mr. Mokai for the willingness to try to think outside the box. But unfortunately, I think at times, and this is one of the issues with Cranberry Park, we've gone too far. So there's an overuse of some of our parks. And the thing is, it does make a difference, especially with the more natural parks. So I want to make sure that we're not striving for income without balance. Lastly, by going over the notice of the public hearing, in the mayor's office, I'll be very brief, I really feel the time has come to put the early childhood position in the Board of Education. I know it's being increased by 20,000, so I really think the Board of Education, with any and all of the requirements of someone in that position, needs to be put back in Board of Education. Legislative part, student interns would greatly help our council people to do their due diligence. I think that is lacking at times. I've always heard the excuse, I only get $50 a month and I don't have time. Well, I have over and over again suggested student interns. So I ask that Ms. King, the city clerk, consider looking into that. It's free. It would make the whole city look good. You have students at Fairfield University and UConn that are studying government. It would be a wonderful way to let our council people do their due diligence so we don't have the problems we had last night with people being upset. Corporation Council, I want to say that I feel this Corporation Council, and I know the mayor has complimented him, I believe there's a little bit too much settlement. There's times when your land use boards mean what they say. They did their due diligence at times. The settlement, I know, sometimes appears to save money, but sometimes it also does not save face. Information and technology. In the past, over and over again, I've talked about the website fixes. I again say that unless and until the IT department fixes that website to the satisfaction of at least the council, that we have some serious withholding of some of their requests. Personnel and labor relations.
I'm going to ask that you
I will wrap
bring your
up.
comments to the close, please.
I will, thank you. For personnel and labor relations, I think there needs to be more emphasis on training of our personnel to keep up with modern day competition, the people that own the land, the people that are expecting, and we have some very, very good staff. But there needs to be a budget that is bigger for training of people at City Hall, because they in turn then train our boards and commissions and our council and our mayor and others. Under Public Works, there has to be a real tough look at recycling. Recreation and Parks, recycling. Education, recycling. And I'll leave you with this. I have tried behind the scenes and quietly, in the way that, Mayor, I know you would like me to negotiate and talk about recycling as a way to offset and reduce our trash hauling. I was there July 4th, and I found that I was promised that we'd at least try to have a park recycling program to get started. It wasn't taken seriously, and it was aborted in the middle of the weekend. The same with the school now. Dr. Adamowski and I still have yet to talk about it, and he is very open. But after 5 superintendents of schools that I had to queue up, then they left. Queue up, then they left. It has not been taken as seriously, and I do believe we'd have cost savings if we combine our city recycling services with the school. Right now, there are 2 different silos. So I again ask, and I have tried through the task force, of which I helped you start, and I'd like to talk with you, sir, about the recycling program in our cities, because it is not optimized, and it will make you and the rest of the Board of Estimate look terrific by including citizens like myself to help manage and plan it, instead of being left aside, phone calls not answered, and I have proof of this. So I'm asking once again that this is a great money saver, and it's a good thing for Norwalk. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Jeff Spark.
Thank you. I appreciate you saving my spot on the line. I'm here on behalf of Norwalk Sped Partners, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the appropriate funding level for the Norwalk Board of Education for the special ed programs that is on the line here. I want to say I know the mayor is very supportive of education. He's also very supportive of the special education programs, and I appreciate that. Norwalk Sped Partners is a group of parents that have children who are in special ed or who have a 504 plan or need special services. And we want to make sure that there is the appropriate funding. For too long, the special ed programs have been underfunded, and I think that you could realize some savings if you basically kickstart the special ed program by giving the funding that's being recommended by the board. Now, I'm not here to tell you how to get that money. The Norwalk Special Ed Parents Association is not here to say where the money comes from. We're interested in making sure that the money is coming. I'll leave it to you guys as far as which is the best fiscally for the city of Norwalk. But I have to tell you, for too long, the special ed department in Norwalk has been driving around with the check engine light on. And it's time that we need to pull over to the side and to get it fixed. Just for instance, my son was in first grade when the Cambridge report came out, indicating that there were severe problems with the special ed department in the city of Norwalk. My son was in second grade when CREC number 1 came out, indicating that there was continued severe problems with the special ed program and that nothing had been done since the Cambridge report. My son was in middle school when CREC number 2 came out, indicating that there continued to be severe problems for the special ed department. And in fact, the CREC 2 report said that it was a matter of urgency that repairs be done. Now my son is in high school. CREC 3 has come out. And this CREC 3 report says that not only has the CREC 2 recommendations not been done, but that the special ed department has gone backwards. So you have an example here of a special ed student who has gone a whole academic generation and just waiting and waiting and waiting for the repairs to be made. Now, I understand that there's going to be significant expenses that have to be made up front, but one of the things you get to like economies of scale. Right now, you're spending a lot of money on outplacing kids. Let me tell you, as a parent of a kid who's outplaced, you don't want your kid to be outplaced. You would much prefer to have your child go to school within the district and, if possible, to the school that they would normally go to, rather than bringing your son to someplace else. For many years, 3 years, I had to drive my son to Southport, Fairfield, for my son to go to a school. Now he's going to a second outplaced school. Wouldn't you rather have your kid get on the bus and go to school? Wouldn't you rather have your kid play in the schoolyard with kids that are on his baseball team or basketball team, or kids that are on the playground, or kids that go to your church? Right now, my son is at an outplaced school where the kids are from New York State. They're from, New Canaan, Wilton, Westport. It's hell to try to get a play date together. That seems like a mundane thing, but I'm just telling you, I don't want people to think that, oh yeah, you're one of those parents that has a kid outplaced. We don't want that. People think, oh, you want your kid to go to a private school and you want the city to pay for it. I don't want that. We don't want that. What we want is, we want the school district to properly fund to have these services brought in the district so that my son can rub elbows with a kid that goes to our church, that my son can have that. Okay, and all I'm saying is you need to do it. Just like, for example, at some point you reach an economy of scale where you decide that you need to have accountants, have your own finance department. Many towns have outside law firms that they use for their internal law firm. We have a corporation counsel because at one point we found it was worthwhile to have a corporation counsel inside. And also it's better because if you have like an interior law department, you have this knowledge of the knowledge of the city. You have like this continuity. Same thing for schools. You'd much rather have your kids go inside the school. So I'm here on behalf of the Norwalk Sped Partners to tell you that we support in whichever way you think is fiscally responsible. But whichever way you do it, it has to be done. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Rilling and members of the Board of Estimate and Taxation. My name is Eric Anderson. I reside at 23 Avenue C, and I'm a member of the Board of Education and a member of the Board of Estimate and Taxation. I must admit it's a little strange for me to be on this side of the table this evening. For 3 years I was sitting right where you all are, making very difficult decisions along with you, most of you, in fact. And I am here tonight to speak on what many people have already spoken about, and that is the funding for the special education fund that we have been speaking about from the Board of Education. As many have spoken before me this evening, it is imperative that we begin to fund special education properly in the city. When I was on the Board of Estimate and Taxation, I noted very carefully that there was an issue coming from the Board of Education in this specific area. I noted it from the funding, I noted it from the balance sheets, I noted it from the questions that I would ask, but I also noticed it from constituents I would talk to. When I left the Board of Estimate and Taxation and decided to run for the Board of Education, I spoke with many constituents. And through that process, those that I spoke to that have children in our special education department and are being given those services would like to have their children come in-house, as has already been spoken about this evening. We do believe that we can do this, and I do believe firmly that we can with this funding. Now, I don't think it's a matter of whether this will work or not. I think that you, from what we can see, support this, but from what I've seen thus far, there is a question of where the funding is going to come from. So, from my understanding right now, there is a proposal to increase taxes on the taxpayers instead of drawing down from the balance of our rainy day fund. Last year, for instance, we drew down $1 million, if I'm correct in stating that number, and we had a net increase of 7.2 or something along those lines, which means we would have been given an additional revenue of $8 million plus. So that was last year, and I know over the past several years, our average income increase to the rainy day fund has been $4 million or so. So taking that number, if we were to draw down the $2.3 million we're requesting to fund the special education fund, along with the $2 million that's already being drawn down to fund the city's operating budget, we come to a total of $4.3 million. Now, if we just do the normal basic average of the $4 million, we almost break even. But historically, we have been going up. $8 million last year alone in additional revenue that was put into the rainy day fund. I believe with the progress we see going around this city, building permits and our real estate conveyance tax, we will easily make up a $4.3 million reduction and not damage one iota our AAA bond rating. We deserve world-class school systems in Norwalk, and we're close. We are making large strides on the Board of Education. We have an amazing strategic operating plan that we are beginning to implement. We are working on creating school governance councils that are going to give more autonomy and creation and involvement to each individual school. The one anchor that's holding this city down and holding the school systems down is special education. The $3.6 million funding boost, which will not increase our operating budget, which will not make us in then turn have to have a higher budget next year, which I know was a concern at one point, is an absolute necessity. And we can achieve that necessity not by taxing the taxpayers any further, but by drawing down from a surplus that we have gratefully added to, and very luckily have added to. So my request is this, that we fund with a special appropriation, fully, $2.3 million from the rainy day fund in order to get the ship righted, to pull the anchor up and allow this ship to sail so we can get to the school systems we deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anthony DeLauro?
Hello, I'm Anthony DeLauro. I'm the Executive Director of the Human Service Council, but that's not why I'm here today. I'm here as a resident of 11 Pine Hill Avenue Extension since 2003 now. I'm very proud Norwalk resident. I have children in the school systems, and I just wanted to say, I think you guys are doing a great job. I think that you are doing an amazing job trying to balance what makes Norwalk a great town. I truly believe that in a town, the three things that you have to balance that'll make Norwalk and continue to make Norwalk great and even make it greater is to bring more revenue in. And one way to bring more revenue in, talking to my neighbors and friends in the at East Norwalk, is why do we all move here? When I moved here from New York, one of the reasons I moved here is the first thing I did is I looked at the schools. So having a great school system is extremely important, or we won't live here. Because if you have to pay for a private school, you'll go to a different town. The other reason is that the taxes are competitive, that taxes are kept low, and that the streets are safe. And this is why HSC works with the police department and school systems to ensure that we work to keep substances down and to support the schools the best we can. I think that balance that you're working on, I know many people here have worked on that balance to ensure that taxes stay as low as absolutely possible so that we're competitive with other towns, that we support and have the best schools and have the safest streets is what will bring more revenue in. People who come from New York, there's a large portion of people who live in our neighborhood who come from New York and bring in a lot of revenue, leave for those reasons. So I again want to thank you for what you're doing. I think you're doing a great job. I think Norwalk's made a lot of progress. And I think that with all the other things we have to offer, like diversity and business and other things, if those three things are balanced well, everything else will fall in place. Thank you.
That concludes the number of people that have signed up on the sign-in sheet. Is there anyone else that has not signed up that wishes to speak at this time? If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Shaheen. I live here in Norwalk. You want my street address? Okay, 32 Strawberry Hill Avenue, East Norwalk. I'm here just really quickly. I'm a parent of a special needs child here in Norwalk. I'm also an educator in one of the middle schools here and a former educator of the Chicago public school system, which is quite a hot mess. I do want to say I'm extremely proud of the work that my son's school has done. He has made incredible progress in the last 2 years. And really, more than anything, I just hope that the decisions that you make ensure that he makes the kind of progress that he has made. I think that is due to the amazing paraprofessionals that have worked with him, his incredible teachers, and the aides that are there. They work tirelessly with the kids to ensure their progress. When it comes time to make those decisions for your budget cuts and whether or not you do fund the special ed needs, I hope you do take into consideration these kids need it more than anything. And if they don't get the funding now, I think it's going to cost the city a whole lot more down the road. I think this is the time to do it, not to put another Band-Aid on this huge problem like Chicago is very good at doing, and to take care of things once and for all. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, I don't see anyone else that wishes to speak, so at this point, this will conclude, adjourn the public meeting of the Board of Assessment and Taxation for today, March 23rd, 2016. Thank you for attending, and have a great evening.